I entered an auction house on the dark web and found myself for sale. During my first year of college, my new roommate Ricky introduced me to the Tor browser. For those of you who've been around the internet long enough, you know Tor is a browser engine used to access the dark web, which we did frequently. For a barely 20-year-old experiencing his first moments of living away from home, being handed a way to access nearly anything I wanted just from the press of a few keys felt like absolute freedom. While we mostly used it for accessing pirated games and films, or maybe visiting a band website, there were times I found myself on the more twisted side of it all. I've honestly seen some pretty disturbing stuff that I really didn't want or need to see, other than to satisfy my morbid curiosity about whether it was even possible to reach those places. While I mostly regret these deeper dives into the dark web, one such dive might have very well saved my life. It was about 2 a.m. on a Friday near the end of my third year of college, and Ricky was spending the night at a cousin's house, leaving me to myself. I had been scrolling through the web, going through various questionable movie sites and playing games I didn't technically own, when I got a strange pop-up ad. One-time auction, limited items, one of a kind. Get now or never again. Don't miss out on these items. It read in a flashing red and green Comic Sans font. Now, I'd been to a few of these dark web auctions, even participated in a few out of impulse, bidding on things that triggered something in my dumb college dude brain. This ranged from things like overly engraved gold handguns you'd see Tony Montana strapping, to pounds of the finest we'd grown in the purest soils of Jamaica, just to give me that little adrenaline rush of, dude, what if I actually get it? Granted, I only ever bid $10, maybe $20 tops, knowing actually winning any of it would probably land me in legal trouble. I wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed and would have been caught within minutes of receiving the package. This one would be different, however. I decided I'd check out the auction and clicked the link before browsing through the bids. At first, it wasn't anything serious, mostly firearms and drugs, typical dark web catalog. As I moved down the list, the items got more extreme, much more extreme. The list started with simple, low-caliber handguns you could get at Walmart in some states, but quickly changed to sniper rifles and LMGs fit for military personnel, until I was eventually being offered small nuclear explosives claiming to have enough power to level small towns. Super strong marijuana and psychedelic mushrooms quickly turned to advertisements for pounds of Colombian cocaine, to 10-pound boxes of fentanyl pills. Shadiest of all were what I assume were experimental drugs. Black and yellow sludge-like substances held in test tubes that didn't even have real names. Just things like XT1 and B8 plus asterisk RVV1/-. Judging by the descriptions, these things fry your brain, considering the people selling them explained the effects through mostly incoherent, barely understandable sentences, implying they'd been indulging in their own supply. I remember one going along the lines of, fun green bubbles, super cool if eaten. It's like green, blue, green bubbles. They fly up, eat up, fly down with the green bubbles. I might be paraphrasing, but trust me, it wouldn't have made any more sense if I'd gotten it spot on. Eventually, I reached what I took to be the Hitman and Murderer catalog. Poison brews of ricin and cyanide claiming to have 0 scent or taste, soundproof sneakers, weapon silencers, fake aliases, passports. People were even selling codes that were apparently instructions on how to get to areas in your location where bodies are most often hidden and never found. There were other codes labeled as how-to instructional tapes made by professionals on how to get away with various types of assault, up to and including murder. If you didn't want to do the work yourself, you could buy the phone number to a top-class hitman near you who would make sure your job was done effectively. Things only got worse when I scrolled to the next page, to see photos of people, some even children, with their names listed underneath. They were advertising human trafficking and giving each of their products a small biography of sorts, as if they were stat cards. It listed everything from address to allergies, strengths, weaknesses, even down to the daily routine. Now, I've seen these kinds of black room type things and was well aware of how depraved people can be on the dark web, but seeing it never gets any less unsettling. Especially reading some of the things these bidders wanted to do with the product once they got their hands on them. This unsettlement quickly turned to unimaginable, agonizing fear as I scrolled down to see my own portrait, one taken on my first day of college. I began to panic as I read off my card. Whoever these people were, they knew my name, age, race, height, weight, even down to my small birthmark behind my ear. Not only that, but they seemed to have known my whole life story from birth. My panic only grew as I saw there were already 4 bidders, the highest of which was bidding almost $15,000. The sickest part was these bidders left comments. Things like, "He'd fit well with my collection," "I can't wait to have his body," "I wish to taste his skin," along with a slew of horrible, deranged things they wanted to do with me that I really don't want to repeat. I fell back and began to hyperventilate. It felt like my heart was going to give out and my brain was going to explode thinking of all the horrible things that might happen to me at the hands of these sick, twisted people who looked to take ownership of my life. Most of the rest of the night was a blur. I remember bidding $20,000 off the bat to top the list, then periodically bidding, I think another 3 every 30 minutes or so until I reached almost $40,000. After that, I must have blacked out, because the next thing I remember was waking up curled into a ball under my desk in a puddle of cold sweat. It was still dark out, so the flashing lights coming from my monitor were all too noticeable. I could feel myself shaking in fear as I slowly crawled out from under the desk before slowly looking at my screen and seeing in large red Comic Sans, "Congratulations. You win. Please list where you'd like to send your prize. We will send an agent to deliver your package." I felt an overwhelming amount of relief wash over my body seeing I had just bought myself. Sure, I ended up putting myself in near debt before I'd even finished school, but I'm alive and free. Knowing those vile people wouldn't be able to live out their fantasies was enough for me to forget about any possible money problems. I think I even started laughing like a madman for a second as I entered. "Leave them be. I bought them their freedom so they don't suffer." Hoping that would be enough explanation, and thankfully it was, as I was answered rather quickly with another message. "Understood. Your product will be removed from all auctions and marked as sold. Thank you for your purchase, Evan." Reading that caused me to nearly collapse as if all the stress and tension built up drained from my body, only to quickly return as I reread the message. They knew I just bid on myself. They were still watching. The next couple of months were a living hell of paranoia and anxiety. I tried to explain what I could to Ricky, and he did his best to help calm me down, but it was fruitless. Eventually, after enough time, I was able to move on from it. More so, I think my mind forced me to block it out, but it's all come back now thanks to an email I just received from Ricky almost 8 years after that night. "Please help. I don't have the money to go up against the highest bidder." I responded as quickly as possible, asking him to send me his PayPal or something. That was 2 days ago. I haven't gotten a response. I think he lost the auction. I found out what happened to my friend on the dark web. There used to be a small YouTube channel called Sam's Online Food Review. It was run by my best friend, Sam Ryder. His videos consisted of him eating and reviewing food and drink before a camera. His channel had around 10,000 subscribers, which, while not huge, was enough for Sam to be dedicated to it. I can recall numerous times sitting in the passenger seat of his car, staying out of his shot as he announced he wanted to video himself trying something he'd picked up at the store. I'd only move after he signed off with his signature, thumbs up or down, and his catchphrase, "I like it" or "I loathe it." He was liked for his friendly attitude and all-around good guy persona. He was well received by his audience. There were rarely any hate comments, and when there were, Sam would shrug them off and keep smiling. Sam was always smiling. Sam's Online Food Review went dark 7 months ago. No warning, no notice, just deactivated. I didn't hear or see from Sam despite numerous phone calls and house visits to no avail. 6 days after his channel was deleted, I called the police to do a welfare check on Sam. I was worried he had fallen ill or hurt himself. The police entered his property and found nothing, and Sam was declared a missing person. A week after Sam was declared missing, a dog walker discovered a body on a railway line. The body had sustained severe injuries. The autopsy report noted that while no direct cause of death could be confirmed, it was likely a critical injury that brought on death. The autopsy also turned up some troubling findings. 2 weeks later, the police identified the deceased. Despite the damage to the body, the teeth were intact enough for dental records. My worst fears for Sam were realized. It was him. The police investigated, but could not find forensic evidence of any other person being at the scene. They eventually concluded that he was hit by a passing freight train. Sam's mother decided it was best to cremate what remained of her only son. I stood next to her as the coffin was pulled into the furnace. As the door closed and the flames ignited, she broke down into tears, and so did I. I stood there sobbing for the entire time it took for one of the people I grew up with and shared so many memories with to be reduced to ashes. I mourned my friend and did my best to move on. And it was going well. I got distracted, got a new job, started dating someone. A few months passed, and even though I missed Sam, things were going well, right up to the point when I was browsing Reddit at 3 a.m. and received a Facebook message from the account of my dead friend. I froze, seeing his profile picture in the messenger bubble. A picture taken during good times, Sam's wide smile plastered on his face. I felt a sudden chill, a profound sense of fear. With dread, I opened the message. It was a link to a file-sharing website. I stared at the seemingly random string of letters and numbers that made up the URL, my head racing, trying to understand what could be on the other side and, more importantly, why my dead friend sent it to me. My hand, seemingly on autopilot, moved the cursor above the link. Against my gut instinct, I clicked. The moment I clicked, I immediately regretted it. Chrome opened a new tab. The screen was gray, except for a black rectangle in the middle of the page with a play button. I stared at it, unwilling to click. About 10 seconds passed, and then the screen refreshed. Instead of the play button, the rectangle had the words "Auto playing in 5 seconds" in bright white. I watched the countdown, trying to understand what was happening. An abrupt buzzing noise made me jump. The video began to play. The camera was pointed at what appeared to be a grimy white tiled surface. I could hear muffled whimpering, followed by footsteps approaching the camera. There was some slight rustling as the camera was adjusted. The screen blurred, and when it came back into focus, I gasped. In the middle of a white-tiled room, Sam lay on his back on a stainless steel table, his eyes wide with pure, unfiltered terror. The light of a single bulb hanging over the table reflected off the sheen of sweat that coated his forehead. His naked chest was rising and falling rapidly in panic. He looked into the camera and attempted to yell, the noise muffled by a gag. His hands were also bound tightly with tape. I stared at the screen, feeling increasingly sick, my brain failing to grasp what was going on. Suddenly, a mocking voice said, "Welcome to Sam's online food review. Today we have a special treat." Sam's panic increased. He started jerking his body, trying to free his hands. The voice continued, "Today we will try what is considered a delicacy in many countries, although usually a forbidden one." The camera zoomed out slightly, and a man appeared in the frame, standing in front of Sam. He was dressed in a white coat with a red-striped apron. He wore a butcher's hat and a cloth face mask. In his rubber-gloved hands, he held a large red-handled butcher's scimitar, and in the other, he held a sharpening rod. The man started running the knife up and down the blade in a smooth fashion. Sam's muffled yells grew stronger. The man placed down the sharpening rod and walked around the table. Sam turned his head and started what sounded like desperate pleading. "Poor little lamb," the man cooed. "It won't hurt long, and you'll be delicious." Tears filled my friend's eyes. As he struggled, the man rolled Sam onto his front and pulled his head over the edge of the table. The man then walked out of shot. Here, I will suggest a slow zoom on Sam's terrified face, perhaps with a distorted audio effect of his muffled cries. Visuals could then cut to black or focus on a flickering light, conveying the horror without explicitly showing it. The minutes felt like hours. When the sound stopped, I shakily got up and walked to my computer. Avoiding the pool of sick on the floor, I forced myself to look at the screen. The page had closed, and Chrome displayed the Reddit screen. The Facebook tab had one notification. I didn't want to click it, but I willed myself to. It was a message from Sam. "I like it." I searched my parents' names on the dark web. The videos I found were horrifying. When my friend first introduced me to the dark web, I was amazed at how such an unknown thing could house some of the most unsettling things on Earth. Up until today, I had only used it for learning how to code and other less savory activities, but after the horrifying videos I just found, I don't think I'll ever use the dark web again. I first met my best friend Alex a little after I got into high school. My parents had moved us to a new town, and I had no friends. It was lonely at first, but I got used to it. We moved because they were concerned after some incidents in our old town. I thought it was a bit much, but I let it go. Alex and I became friends quickly because we shared an interest in the internet. I was a gaming addict while he was more of a coder and developer. 2 years later, we were still best friends. But now we were older and more aware. Alex had discovered the dark web, and he was obsessed with it. He pretty much spent every hour of the day on it, searching through anything you could imagine. There was nothing inherently wrong with this, but one search he made was the biggest mistake of his life. I remember waking up to dozens of text messages from him one morning. This wasn't normal. Alex wasn't very social. I opened my phone. "Dude, Jack, you have to come over right now. This is important. Jack, please wake up. This is urgent. Where are you?" These were only some of the messages. They were all urgent, and I needed to go to his house immediately. My parents were at work, so I went over to Alex's house. When I arrived, there were police cars parked in front, and dozens of people and news vans were standing out front. I made my way through the crowd, and Alex's mother, with tears rolling down her cheeks, told the police to let me inside. "What's going on, Mrs. Gonzalez?" I asked. "Alex is missing," she said, crying. My heart sank. How could this happen? He had just texted me that morning. What if he was trying to warn me? What if his text messages were related to his disappearance? Still in shock, I walked up to one of the detectives. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked. "Of course he is," one of the detectives responded. "We're going to find him very soon." Something about that response was off. I had a feeling I wasn't going to see him again. I remembered the text messages and showed them to the detective. As he began reading them, his expression changed. He told me they needed to keep my phone for now and said they would give it back to me later. I stayed around the house for a while, wanting to comfort his parents. His mother couldn't stop crying. Eventually, I went into Alex's room to see if I could find anything that might give a clue about why he went missing. I searched through everything but found nothing. Then I noticed something. Alex's computer was on, but his monitor was off. I turned it on. As the screen lit up, my heart sank. He was on the dark web. He had dozens of tabs open. I closed the door and locked it and began going through them. At first, it was all pretty usual for him, but then things started to get weird. He had a tab open that was an article about a disturbing incident that had happened several years ago. The article described what had happened in very graphic detail. Here, you could suggest a visual of the computer screen with the article blurred, or perhaps just the sound of someone nervously scrolling through a page. Not wanting to see any more, I switched the tab, only to reveal another article about a similar incident. Confused, I quickly went through the rest of the tabs, and they were all the same thing. They were all about similar events. The one that stuck out the most, however, was one about an incident that had happened 2 years ago. It was about what had happened to our neighbor. Confusion swept over me. How did Alex know about this? I never told him about it. I figured it must have just been a strange coincidence, but then I saw the last search he had made on his computer. It was my last name. Horrified and confused, I stumbled out of his room and back to the living room. "Is everything all right?" Alex's mother said. "Yeah, I just need to go home for dinner," I responded. On the way home, so many questions filled my mind. Why was he searching up my last name? Did he think that I had something to do with this? That must have been why he was texting me so frantically that morning. If only I could explain to him that I didn't do anything wrong. But I couldn't. He was still missing. When I got home, I raced to my room and got on my computer. I loaded up my Tor browser and turned my VPN on. I knew what I had to do. I began typing in the letters of my last name, becoming more nervous after every letter. When I finally hit enter, nothing happened. It was just a blank screen. Confused, I refreshed the page, but once again, there was nothing. There must be something out there. I was getting ready to close the tab when suddenly, the page started to load. Took several minutes, but finally, it loaded to reveal hundreds of videos. I knew what they were. They were recordings. But why did they show up when you searched my last name? I considered stopping right there, but I couldn't. I knew this had to be why Alex went missing, so I clicked on the first video. As it started playing, I saw something. It was disturbing. I quickly recognized who it was. It was our neighbor from 2 years ago. She was in distress. Here, you could use distorted audio and quick flashes of a blurred image to suggest what is happening without showing it explicitly. Focus on the character's reactions, widening eyes, gasping, etc. I couldn't watch anymore. My parents, I knew then. This whole time I thought Alex was trying to accuse me, but I was wrong. He was trying to warn me. I scanned through more of the videos. I was just about finished, ready to go to the police, when I noticed something. There was a new video uploaded today. I clicked on it. It was Alex.